Welcome back to the Nassau Hockey Podcast. I'm James Nichols of the Fourth Period, and with me, as always, is John Zella of the Hockey Writers. What's up, pal?
It feels like it's been a really long time since it's been the both of us.
I think we had a couple of weeks in a row, right? It was me and Joe, then me, Joe, and you last week, and now, so it's been about 3 weeks.
Yeah, I was down for the count, and then I was away and traveling, which felt a little weird to be kind of like back in other cities that I wasn't driving to. But Cleveland rules. If you haven't been to Cleveland before, I was there for a few days. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a lot of fun. If you play an instrument,
So great.
they have like little jam rooms and stuff. You can go play.
Yep.
It's a cool little city. I mean, I'm used to kind of living in a small city, so maybe that's why I enjoyed just being in a slightly larger small city. But it was a lot of fun. If you just need somewhere to go, it's it's a lot further from Long Island than it is from Syracuse, but it's still not that bad.
Yeah, I think the thing that I liked about Cleveland so much was that because I live in such a large city, it's a smaller city and it's cleaner, but there's also like a lot of things to do in that area.
Oh yeah,
And I just enjoyed the hell out of it. Like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like you said, was fantastic. But also, it's like when I was in a band back in the day, like we played it was a weekend festival full of just bar to bar different venues just hosting shows. The whole festival was under like the same umbrella, but it was just thousands and thousands of different bars just hosting, or I should say hundreds, probably not thousands, but hosting these events. It was so fun. Like you would just go from one bar to the next, and like everybody would just be listening to music or playing music. I played like in 3 days, I played like 12 shows because we were
that's
in
crazy.
just so many different bars playing. It was
That's
so
like
fun.
it sounds like Riot Fest. I think is in Florida. They do
Yeah,
that.
something like that. Yeah, it was super fun.
What was the name of your Breaking Benjamin cover band?
So the band I joined after it was already formed. I was the second drummer, and I think we had this conversation before. It was a very generic name. It was Backfire.
And you're not denying the Breaking Benjamin cover part. Just to make a quick note of
At
that.
no point did we ever cover a Breaking Benjamin song.
I don't know that anyone ever has.
We did cover a Disturbed song. So
wow, did I have you pegged? And just for those listening and not watching on YouTube, the beard today, he would have killed for this covering a Disturbed song. Would have killed for this look. However many years ago, a decade plus ago. Would have just made his whole life.
It's about 10 years ago. But on the other end of the spectrum, we've also covered Red Hot Chili Pepper songs. Don't ask me how that works, but we did. And we did a couple of different covers. We had our own original music too, but it was just like whatever like somebody was feeling that day. They were like, "Hey, you want to like learn this and cover it?" We were like, "Yeah, why not?" Like we were 20, like we didn't care. Just do whatever we wanted.
The last song I covered, geez, 7 years ago or something like that. I think it was "In Bloom" by Nirvana. And it was, I don't remember the exact reason. All the bands on this like very, very tiny label in Syracuse covered Nirvana songs. And we were they just said, learn a Nirvana song. So we did. And I have no idea why.
If you're not, watching this and you're listening to the audio, John right now is in his orange and brown flannel with his big beard. He's actually got a ponytail. You wouldn't see it because his hat's covering it, but totally fits the hipster look right now. He's all over it.
My hair was floofy today, post condition.
It's humid over there too.
It's you know what? The humidity. It was nice here this last weekend.
Us too.
And today a huge storm came through, and
we're
it cooled off quite a bit. Yeah, there was like tornado warning, which look, I live here because I just have to clear the ice off my car, right? It snows and that's it. Like it gets a little cold for kind of a long time, but I don't have to worry about, scorpions or tornadoes or hurricanes or bobcats or bears or any scary animal or weather or earthquakes. No calamities. Just it's very easy to live here and just like away from horrible things.
Wildlife.
And then so getting like a tornado watch, there's plenty of wildlife. It's just not like
like
getting attacked by
scary
stuff.
wildlife is what you're away from.
Right. And yeah, so getting a tornado warning is unsettling.
Yeah, that's what I had heard today too. And my wife, she's at work now, and I was like, apparently there's like a tornado watch. Like, should you be going to work? And she's like, I'm looking at the weather now. I think everything cleared up. It should be fine. But I'm looking outside, and like there's some pretty dark clouds out there. So we're gonna have to check up on her in a little bit, make sure she's okay. But this is a hockey podcast. Is that?
I mean,
Did I get?
It is the off season.
Oh, true.
For the Islanders anyway. Not that there's been a shortage of news.
True.
But it is the off season.
It is the off season. However, not for a lack of, like you said, news, and playoff hockey's on right now too. And we could talk about that a little bit. And I was curious to know, John, the first round's over now. Were there any playoff surprises for you thus far?
Not in particular. I will say I saw earlier today that Wayne Gretzky picked every single series correct. He first of all, he picked every team that he's played for. They all made it. Well, except for the Kings. He picked against the Kings.
Yeah, but he played for the Oilers.
The Oilers. Oilers, St. Louis, and the Rangers all made it. I don't want to say I'm surprised. I want to give the Rangers credit. I know this is an Islanders show. I want to give the Rangers credit. Like, this is a lot like the Islanders beating the Penguins a number of years ago, where it was they wound up getting swept in the next round, and that very well may be what happens against I think Carolina. Yeah, Carolina. Because they're very good and seasoned and all this stuff, and the Rangers are kind of like this up and coming group. But I was a little surprised. Like, I think once again Pittsburgh beat themselves. The Toronto thing, I don't know if it's a surprise or what. I just can't believe it that they still can't do it. I know it was at the hands of the Lightning, which lightens the blow a little bit, but that's still like, I don't know what's worse, what Islander fans went through with no playoffs or going through this, where you're making the playoffs fairly consistently and having a very good regular season. It's like the Caps. There's just that long period where they just like could not get over the hump.
Yeah, I don't want to say that it surprised me that that they lost again, because again they decided last offseason, are we going to run it back with the same crew, and they felt that Keefe should have brought them back to the postseason, and let's see what we got with this group again with Keefe behind the bench for, I think this was his first full season. I could be mistaken.
Maybe 82 games.
Right,
he came in after December of one season.
Yeah,
and then it was too shortened.
Right, and that's what I mean. So, I think I was just surprised by. I know they finished ahead in the standings of the Lightning, but I thought honestly the Lightning were gonna just kind of steamroll them. I expected them to lose again. I wasn't expecting them. I did. I expected them to lose again because again, you can't count out Vasilevsky and the Lightning. They're just a well-oiled machine.
They'll lose eventually, though.
Defending champs. I think they will. You're right.
I thought that they could finally kind of put it together. But
I did pick.
It is a very good team.
I did pick the Lightning to beat the Panthers, even because I'm going based off experience here. The Panthers had a pretty tough time in the first round. They just got out by the skin of their teeth. So I think that the Lightning are going to prove to be a big test for the Panthers, especially given how inconsistent Bobrovsky is. So that's that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. My biggest surprise, though, I think, was Minnesota. I was surprised that they were defeated as easily as they were.
Only it went back and forth. Yeah, it went back and forth early on, but St. Louis took over.
Yeah,
in the latter stage of that series. That doesn't surprise me, being that St. Louis seems to have some more playoff veterans, just like, and they've been around this team for a while.
Yeah,
you have guys like Torrey Krug, who obviously didn't win with with St. Louis. He won with Boston.
Yeah, he won with Boston.
So it doesn't super surprise me. I think if what you mean is like Fleury couldn't put it together and get hot, like I don't think he played bad.
No, I don't think he played bad, and I'm not taking anything away from the Blues here. They're an excellent team, and I like their chances moving forward. I just thought that the Wild would have been harder to overcome than they were, is what I'm saying. Not that the Blues shouldn't have won, but just that I thought maybe the Blues would, or I'm sorry, the Wild would have put up a better fight. Really only Kaprizov showed up. In a way, the Wild are a little more offensive, but a harder version, or a similar version of the Islanders, where they're really grindy and hard to play against, and then they have guys like Kaprizov and Fiala who can score goals like that. But I was surprised that they were overcome as easily as they were. That was my surprise of the first round.
I'm excited for the second round because there's the Battle of Florida and the Battle of Alberta, yes. And I think that's Calgary and Edmonton could not be more different teams. A lot of talent out there. It's not a goaltending battle, although Mike Smith is kind of doing his thing.
He does this, right? He just has these stretches of games where, in the season you'll be like, they can't do it with this guy anymore, and then they'll get to the nitty gritty, whether it's the end of the season they really need to win, or if they're in the playoffs, he'll just turn it on, and he's dialed in, and he shut out the Kings for a Game 7. That's unbelievable.
When you have the best player in the game, you do need to get inspired in those big moments, and they really needed that first round win in a full season, doing the whole thing, having McDavid there. Like, it finally feels like it's not a waste. This is a big test against Calgary. I'm actually really interested. I hope I can stay up for some of these games. They're 9:00.
Yeah, I know.
I think so. That makes it a little bit easier, but a little tough. And Florida and Tampa Bay, if there was ever a passing of the torch, it'd be very interesting, because the path forward after this, the Lightning are easily the best team remaining in the East. I think they wipe the Rangers clean. That series is over in 5 games.
Oh, sorry, backtrack. Are the Lightning the best team in the East, or the Hurricanes?
The Lightning are the best team in the East.
Oh, okay.
And I think that, so if the Rangers advance and the Lightning advance, I don't think that's much of a series, honestly.
Okay.
If Carolina, I don't know, the Lightning are so good. I don't know what their season series was, but they definitely know each other. That would be a great conference final matchup for the East. With Florida, I think Florida easily takes the Rangers and Carolina, honestly. So I think that the winner of the series in Tampa, Florida, if they don't beat the hell out of each other, will wind up back in the, or if there's Tampa back in the Cup final, or Florida to their first one since 96.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. They have a good team. They played a good Capitals team who had their moments. They did win in 6, which isn't nothing. I know you could either think it looks close or far away, depending on how you look at it. They're good. They're really deep. They have a lot of firepower, and overcoming another. I almost said Southeast Division, whatever that division is. I don't even know what the name of that division is. Is it the Atlantic?
Yeah, Atlantic, right. Yeah.
The Atlantic Division. We both had to think about that. You were about to make fun of me too, but you didn't know.
No, I was going to say the Atlantic, but I saw that the light bulb was coming on, so
it was coming. Yeah, that's slowly. It is dim. So that's a good test for them. They saw them a lot this season, so.
For me, I tend to go with the experience. The Lightning have been there. This is really the Panthers' first go at a playoff series like this.
Their first playoff series win since making it to the Cup final.
Going through another, it's going to be a tough series to grind it out. The Lightning are a little more well equipped to do so, I think, because they've been there before, right? The first round, the Huberdeaus and the Barkovs for Florida were not as Huberdeau and Barkov-esque as they should have been. Whereas for the Lightning, Kucherov was doing his thing. Point was doing his thing, who he is also hurt, but Stamkos was doing his thing. Hedman, Vasilevsky he had his moments, but they've been there before. So I think they just know what it takes to continue forward on that path, where the Panthers, their moments will come, but I think it's going to take, a little bit of a learning curve. And much like the Islanders for the past few years, they have to go through those growing pains too. I'm actually excited for Rangers Carolina for one very particular reason.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
Tony DeAngelo.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I think, a lot of emotions in this series. I think it's going to get chippy, it's going to get nasty, and I'm counting on the Hurricanes winning in 5. I think that they're, again, another team that has the playoff experience. The Rangers are a ton of young guys and Chris Kreider. This Shesterkin, obviously he's the Vezina favorite, but in the first series against the Penguins, it took him a while to get acclimated. It wasn't until his last game against the Penguins to have a good save percentage. He had a decent save percentage the first 6 games. It gradually went up. And actually, if I'm being honest, the first 2 games, it was pretty bad. I think it was like the 800s. But I think the Hurricanes are going to steamroll the Rangers. And that's not me just hating on the Rangers. I think they played a really great first round series against the Penguins. It was an excellent series. I just think that the Hurricanes know how to, again, find that next level, that new gear, and that Tony DeAngelo return to MSG is going to be something else.
I'd say. I hope Reeves gets a nice piece of him.
That would be fun.
Yes, I can't wait. He's going to go at him all
100%.
I love that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
What do you think, Avalanche, St. Louis?
Come on. I think winning the cup.
Avalanche Tampa Bay would be a fantastic. That might be the best cup in years, and I got to give it to the young, Avalanche kind of biding their time seemingly, and Tampa's got to run out of gas eventually.
Yeah,
like you can't.
I think that comes against Carolina in the conference final.
Oh, you think Carolina can take them?
Yeah, I do.
The goaltending battle between, Shesterkin would be really great against Vasilevsky, but the Rangers just don't have I don't think the firepower like the rest of the way. Like they're not deep enough of it as a team, especially on D. Carolina, I think they lose that goaltending battle all day, and they do not have the horses to go with Tampa.
Well, Rant is playing real well, and at some point, Frederik Andersen is going to come back, and he was like top 5 in all categories this year. So I think he'll be okay if he comes.
If he can not be the Maple Leafs,
right? The Maple Leafs version of himself.
Yeah, in the playoffs, I guess so. But I think Tampa's just too deep there.
Yeah,
Carolina has a better shot against Florida.
Oh, okay.
And then I think than the Lightning. Yeah, I still think Florida is better than Carolina as well. Yeah. I think the winner of the East is coming out of that Florida battle.
The Atlantic.
Yeah. Which Carolina's included in the Metro, aren't they?
They are. They weren't. It's weren't last season. Yeah.
It's like I just woke up from a coma from 2009, and I'm like, what happened to the Southeast Division? Why are they? That's embarrassing. Okay.
Was it Carolina that wasn't? No, I think Carolina was in the Metro last year. Who wasn't? It was Buffalo and Columbus. That's who wasn't in the Metro last season.
Buffalo makes sense. Yeah. They're in the divisions don't make any sense. I really wish it was more geographic, because it just doesn't even sometimes it follows, sometimes it doesn't.
It reminds me of the Mighty Ducks, where they were like, look where the district lines were just redrawn, and now we got Adam Banks, baby. Let's go.
That's really funny. Did you see? I tweeted. Someone had tweeted. I don't know why I saw it. I think it was like a trending thing on Twitter, and I clicked, or just popped up or something. Someone had tweeted. It's actually really funny. My father won't stop yelling "Bang Bang Crystal Tang" at the top of his lungs. What does that mean?
I saw that.
And then people were responding. Someone tweeted "Poo Poo Claude Giroux." That's classic.
That's a great one.
Love that. And then obviously it reminded me of the Mighty Ducks when it's "Woo Woo Kenny Woo."
Yep.
And surprisingly, I feel like not enough hockey fans remember. I know a lot of them have seen the Mighty Ducks, and maybe it's a generational thing, which I don't like saying that because it's silly. Like, everyone has access to this stuff now.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just on someone's VHS tape in a basement. But like I definitely quote that quite a bit in hockey circles, and people don't react. Maybe it's just not funny. That's entirely possible.
No,
I'm
it's
not funny.
hilarious. That's
Yeah, so
heartbreaking to me,
I know
actually.
that's what I thought. I was like, no, I know that I know my sense of humor is
I know
good.
this is funny. I
Yeah,
know this is funny.
I know. Yeah, you don't have a sense of humor. You don't think it's funny. It is a good joke.
It sounds like a them problem, not a you problem.
I will take that because they're not here to defend themselves.
That's
So I'll take that. That seems fair to me.
I'm
I'll take
glad.
that.
I'm glad.
Good.
We got a bit of news today in Islander country.
I know timing is everything as we plan this show before the news. We actually said this before. We plan on doing the show a day early before we heard this news.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah. What's the news? Tell me the news. Break the news to me.
It took me a minute to understand what you were saying there, but yes, you're right. The timing was perfect. Lane Lambert, the new head coach of the New York Islanders. A lot of questions here, right? Because the new voice, the fact that Lamoriello doesn't really go the route of hiring new head coaches, right? Lambert doesn't have any head coaching experiences. There's a lot of
in the NHL.
questions in the NHL, correct? You had wrote something about Lamoriello being on the hot seat. Does this add or take away to your thoughts on Lamoriello being on said hot seat?
I think it's gonna be really easy for people to be critical. If anything, go like the first 3-game losing streak in December, people are gonna jump him.
Okay,
Especially Lamoriello.
Okay.
Yeah, Lambert is he's a new coach. What do he's finding his voice with the team, all this kind of stuff. I think it adds some intrigue. I think it puts more pressure on Lamoriello making those moves he needs to make. This is okay. You can rationalize why Lambert's the right choice. We'll get into some specifics.
We'll definitely talk about that.
It's easy. You can very easily say this makes sense because in X, Y, and Z. The shift then focuses to they're not learning a new system, or it won't be that different. It'll be a different voice. Maybe some structure is different, but it's not going to be a transformation. It'll be an adjustment period, which is totally fair. But you can't put that on the team. That's not an excuse. You didn't wait to find him, and you couldn't sign him until whatever, because who knows what, like he's there early. He's been with the team. They know who he is. Even if it was somebody new and it wasn't that much of a departure from structure, no, they know this guy. That's why Lamoriello was there. So I think this gets it out of the way early. I think this was the plan all along. They weren't going to wait on it. They definitely had this name last week, but they didn't, you don't want to overshadow that news. So you're spreading out. So
that's what I was going to say. Can I jump in real quick here?
Sure. You're also on this show. You also can speak.
Oh, cool. Thanks. And actually, if you're not
at your leisure,
if you're not watching the video version of this, I actually did raise my hand as if I'm in elementary school. But anyway, Chris Botta did bring up a good point on Twitter earlier. He said, why was this not announced last week? Well, number one, you didn't want to overshadow Lane Lambert's first NHL head coaching job. So you wait a week.
It's all PR.
And yeah, it's all PR. And
in a good way. I get it.
Yes, exactly. It's definitely a good thing. So I respected the week's difference in announcements. I totally understood that. And that's all I wanted to say. You can continue.
But the shift, I think, then just simply goes immediately to Lamoriello. Like now, it's not two decisions anymore. You got one out of the way. That's fine and dandy. All eyes are on the draft. What are the Islanders going to do? We know the potential things that are out there. With the Minnesota Wild, Kevin Fiala, probably a slew of other options that are maybe too many to count, and many more that Lamoriello has that we don't have.
William Nylander,
maybe. I don't. I wonder about that. We can talk about that if you want to make a note for at the end of the show. Because I have a few thoughts on that, but I think it shifts back to Lamoriello now about filling out this roster appropriately, right? It's we've said many times this is not a season where you can kind of swing and miss. You gotta land something, not just as hope. Oh wow, this is gonna be great, and like it's gotta be when these moves happen, they have to make sense. It's not about like, oh, okay, let's see how this Lamoriello move works out. Who knows? It's not about complementary pieces necessarily, although you need to complement a Barzell with a high skilled player, because that was a comment after I wrote this article. People were like, oh, it's not about the players around the good players. I'm like, it kind of is though. It is about adding someone next to Nelson or on that third line and next to Barzell. It is about getting the players off the team that were, to quote a previous Islanders coach, passengers. It is about adding a puck moving defenseman that can skate a little bit next to Dobson, right?
Yeah.
And solidifying that third pair. A lot of questions still about what that is. Is it Salo and Green with Mayfield? Is it just Green and Mayfield?
Yeah.
Is Salo in a trade and he's not on the team and it doesn't matter? Is it dark horse AHL player we did not expect to have a fantastic first year on a third pair? I don't even know who that might be.
Right.
Van Sample, I have no idea who can have an amazing camp. He's a defender, right? That makes sense. So I think this just shifts where the Heat is. He's still, I think there's some on him for sure.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. We'll contemplate next if this was the right choice, but this was just the first, or I guess the second move of or shakeup of the shakeups coming down the line. It's going to be a long summer, and these transactions that Lamoriello has to make may be quick. He's already showing an aggressive nature, which is atypical of him. But the onus is definitely on him right now. He's got to show up, or he's got to put up or shut up, because I think we said this last week. Ownership is going to want to put asses in seats, and if Lamoriello doesn't ice a product that excites everybody, then they're not going to show up. So he's definitely on the hot seat. I couldn't agree with you more. Let's talk about, though, is Lane Lambert the right choice?
He was the immediate person people were putting out. I don't know that makes it the right choice. Lamoriello, we'll cut to this clip soon, but Lamoriello said that he was impressed with how Lambert handled when Trotz was out.
Yep.
He's been around the team a long time. That relationship probably grew and evolved over time. He may have seen what that voice was, and it's again, we'll cut to that Lamoriello new voice clip as well. If we were better editors, we would just put it in as soon as I said that and moved on. But here we are. I think it remains to be seen. I think it's a new enough voice to a degree with some familiarity, which is fair. This is, I don't want to say it's not a fragile group, but this isn't like a rebuilding thing. Like, the structure was there. Lambert said as much, that it's not going to be this just kind of overhaul of the whole thing. Lambert was kind of the brainchild to some of this too. Like, you remember, he's been with Trotz for a very long time. So if it just needs to be a different enough voice. And we can, kind of talk about that a little bit after we hear from Lamoriello.
Yeah. Just my thoughts on it quickly are, the question was, once Barry Trotz was let go of, was, are you going to find somebody who's better than Barry Trotz? The answer largely is no, you're not going to. So, however, if you're not going to get better than him, you might as well, this isn't one of those things where they decided, might as well just put Lambert behind the bench. No, it was one of those things where it was like, Lambert is an extension of Trotz. He can keep that system that they've been playing in their own zone defensively intact. However, not all assistant coaches who are, like similarly to Lambert, who shadowed head coaches for long periods of time, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have their own voice. And there's probably been plenty of things down the line where Lambert has seen something that Trotz has done and said to himself, I would have done it differently, but he's the coach. It's his decision. And he just, he does his job. Immediately, something I think of regarding Lambert is there have been plenty of times where the Islanders get a late game goal that they really needed, and you'll see, Trotz, he'll be happy about it, but Lambert will show some emotion, and right then and there is a big difference that I see in, he's a different kind of guy, and that's something that Lamoriello says as well. So before we recap all of the Lamoriello quotes ourselves, let's hear from Lamoriello himself on what he was impressed by with Lane Lambert and how nobody knew that this was going to happen.
Certainly, no one had any knowledge of a change being made. And Lane, without question, was on top of that list. From my experiences with him over the past 4 years, and in particular, not only working with him as an assistant coach, but working with him for over 2 weeks when he was the head coach, and working as I would work with the head coach as the position I have, was something that kept behind my mind. And the way Lane operated, the different things that he did during that period of time. And I prefaced when he became that interim coach, because of some extenuating circumstances and family issues with Barry, to coach as if he were coaching from the day one of the season and not just try and do the same things that were done prior to him. And I was extremely impressed with the way he handled each and every situation. And I did make it a point to sit in on meetings and to be more visible or around than I normally would be.
Hockey fans, the pursuit for the Stanley Cup is on, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has an unbelievable offer for the most exciting playoffs in sports. New customers can bet $5 on any team to win and get $100 in free bets, no matter what, win or lose. Looking to turn a small bet into a big payday during the playoffs? With DraftKings same-day game parlays, you can do just that. Create your own parlay by combining multiple bets, like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more. It's your shot at even bigger payouts. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code THPN, bet $5 on any NHL team to win, and get $100 in free bets, no matter what. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. So right at the end of that quote, what I really liked to hear was that, yes, he had been thinking about this for some time because of the fact that Lamoriello made himself more present around, some of the team meetings, and, GMs sometimes they're behind the scenes. They don't attend these things, and they're not maybe a voice in the room at times where, coaches are having conferences amongst themselves, and where do you, take the direction of the team moving forward, and, are we going to change things up a bit, yada, yada, in terms of style of play. But immediately he talks about, I was around more and I was looking into and listening and taking note of things that Lambert was doing, Lambert was saying, and I was very impressed. He had that short stint of time where Barry was out, and he handled himself swimmingly with the media behind the bench, and the Islanders went 2-1 essentially in those 3 games that he was behind the bench. It was a 2-week span that Barry would have been out. I think the Islanders got postponed games at some point because of schedule shifting. However, he did run a number of practices during that week off. So Lambert's, I guess, audition went really well. And it's funny because he didn't even know he was auditioning. I'm sure there was a ton of speculation around the league. He got an interview last summer with Anaheim, and he was apparently in the top 3 choices. He's been rumored to be the next head coach of the Detroit Red Wings, and
he has a connection with Yzerman.
Yeah, he has a connection. They used to be roommates in college, so it's just one of those things where they have that connection, and so that's why all these rumors were about, and there were a number of other teams that were lining up to have him come to an interview. So there's a reason why Lambert is so well regarded around the NHL, despite his lack of head coaching experience. But there's
some people were pointing to that, like, oh, he didn't even get the Anaheim job in this. I think it's just as much as like when we get on GMs about not signing a player. It's like, that they didn't just choose to not sign the player. Like Panarin, for instance, chose the Rangers.
Right.
It's not just that they didn't choose him, is that they chose somebody else. Somebody else was for the vision of their team. And this is very specific. For the vision that they had for their team, he just didn't fit that. It's not that he didn't have the experience. It's so much more than that, right?
Yeah.
Great hockey minds come from all parts of all over the place. They come from college hockey. Look at David Quinn with the Rangers, and who could have been a candidate for this particular job, but he may not have fit what Lamoriello was putting together. And you know what? A new GM might come in 2 years, and Lambert doesn't fit what their vision is, and because of the way that they see the roster, because Lambert's been around, they share a very similar vision. Lambert is now just the new voice of that vision and kind of bringing it to life. I don't think all that much will change. It does need to change as far as the roster construction, but I think the character of the players, stuff like that around the franchise, is not going to change.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And so we have to give credit to Kevin Kurz of The Athletic. Obviously, everybody knows he's the Islander beat writer for The Athletic. He asks the tough questions that need to be asked, and he deserves credit for those questions. And he did ask, well, Lou, you did say that you needed a different voice. You needed a new voice. Is Lane Lambert new enough? And this was Lamoriello's response.
Well, first of all, when you say a new voice, there's a tremendous difference between an assistant coach and a head coach. It's bigger than I think anyone can sometimes understand. And that new voice is here with Lane. And certainly Lane has different thoughts on different things. Everybody does. And you learn when you're an assistant coach sometimes more of what you wouldn't do and sometimes what you would do, and vice versa. So there is, without question, a new voice. Maybe it wasn't the right phrase that I should have used, but it is a new voice in the position that Lane is now in. And I would say a big new voice in that, because we're talking about two totally different personalities with reference to Barry and Lane.
And the thing that I love the most about that is that, yeah, he's totally right. Lambert is a totally different kind of voice than Barry Trotz was. And like I said earlier, you look at some of the emotions just behind the bench, and you can see the different personality types, right? A game-winning goal in overtime would get an arm raise from Barry Trotz, and then he would shake his assistant coach's hands. I've seen clips of Lane Lambert fist pumping and that little side fist pump, the leg kick while he's doing it. Like, he really gets his emotions into it. So I think that an emotional kind of coach like that can sometimes really, really rally a team. At times too, can you say that too much emotion can hurt a team from a head coach like that, whether, because if it's a negative kind of emotion, sure. But I haven't seen that kind of reaction from Lane Lambert in his 4 years behind the Islander bench with Trotz. And if you can manage those emotions correctly, he can really just bring a new kind of life to the Islanders. And we always talk about, and we'll talk about this a little later too, they're great defensively, but can he get them energetic and faster and more offensive? And he might have that plan in place already.
Yeah, I think it just maybe part of that new voice is change in perspective of how to treat veterans versus younger players.
Yeah.
An argument that was just had, on Isles Twitter throughout the year. I mean, some of those choices are here's the roster, and Trotz and his team, which Lambert was a part of, right? So like, he's definitely got to prove himself on a number of levels. He has to come out and make the right decisions. He's doing more than, he improved the penalty kill from like 30th to 4th or 6th this last season, right? He has done a lot of really good things, and he has it seems like it's possible that he has a good vision for this team. But the mistakes that were made in this last year need to be rectified first and foremost by Lamoriello giving Lambert the tools. Lambert will only go as far as this roster will take him, right? Regardless of voice. We saw that with Trotz. Eventually, whether he lost the room or just wasn't working, like Trotz got him to that point, and they just needed somebody, literally anybody else, to kind of get him over that hump. I think that's fine, but he does, he can only go as far as that roster takes him, because again, it's not going to be this monumental shift in how they play. Just tweaks, which is, to be expected. So we'll see. He definitely has his work cut out for him. People will be looking for kind of any excuse to say this is not a good idea. So now that it's not even June, we can kind of call it out for what it is. It's going to take it. I don't want to say it's going to, like I can predict the future. It may take some time. He is in early. He already has those existing relationships. Likely already kind of happening, that those conversations are happening with Lamoriello and what they, their shared vision for the future of the team going in this upcoming season. What do they need? What type of player? All of this, what would match well with the team? What's his perspective on it? So there's a new voice means kind of a lot of things. Change a slightly different perspective. How he handles the team literally behind the bench. How he interacts with those players. Any kind of tweaks, like it's a lot deeper than that. So it's an adjustment, is maybe closer to what Lamoriello was trying to say, and not to put words in his mouth, because he did answer the question. But I think a lot of people, there were a lot of people that were saying that this roster, I think you among them, did not need a rebuild. I think that includes the coach. They don't need a rebuild. They need to tweak the roster, and they need to tweak behind the bench.
Yeah.
I think that's perfectly fine. It's like a mid-season coaching change.
Correct.
Sometimes those little tweaks make a really big difference. Hopefully they can get the same result in an off season. And there's a lot of months now between here in October.
And what immediately comes to mind in mid-season coaching changes or new head coaches in the NHL that haven't been in the NHL as a head coach prior, you asked the question, did we avoid potentially a dangerous path of hiring a recycled coach? We'll talk about that. But what I like about a new head coach is, like, look at Craig Berube. He came in and he actually brought them to the cup, and they won the cup. More recently, look at Martin St. Louis. Look at what he did for Montreal, right? Montreal's still not a good team. However, when Martin St. Louis came in as the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, they were no longer playing like laughable hockey, I'll call it, because it was pretty much every night. They were losing by a touchdown.
Yeah.
St. Louis came in and he implemented a new system. And it wasn't like an overhaul. It was just tweaks to their current system. He implemented, different. He built chemistry with different lines. He got the most out of some of his younger guys, like Cole Caulfield. These newer coaches, or I guess I shouldn't say younger, because Lane Lambert is only 2 years younger than Barry Trotz. But newer coaches that have no NHL head coaching experience, maybe they just bring a different mindset, because the Trotzes and the Babcocks and the Quenvilles and the Julians, they all have their, well, this is what I've done for 600 plus NHL games. This is what I'm going to keep doing because this is what works. Lambert's going to bring something new that he's never done before because he hasn't been a head coach. So, and it's worked, for Berube. It's worked for Marty St. Louis. Has it not worked for other guys? Sure. But there's both ends of the spectrum here to look at. So the question becomes, does he have the open-mindedness about the offensive part of the game that Trotz didn't have?
And that might be the change. That might be the new voice, is his perspective on that, knowing, again, Lamoriello has to give him the horses, but if it's that much of a change in perspective and open-mindedness about how to shift and work with your players, instead of saying, regardless of what you give me, here's how we're playing the game. And you just need somebody with a little more flexibility, a little more open-mindednness and creativity, then Lambert's your guy. He does know the roster. Putting somebody in there with a little more creativity, it could work. This, for all intents and purposes, this makes sense. There's not a lot that you can throw at this that it doesn't. I did not like the petty, he didn't get hired last season. Like, I just, as we discussed earlier, I just don't think, I don't buy that. That's not a very good reason.
No.
There's a billion reasons that go into hiring. So I don't know if you've ever had to hire somebody. It's a really hard decision when it comes, especially when it comes down to just a few people, and you're kind of going through you start comparing the nuances of it all. You almost lose it. There's like these, whether it's an intangible thing or this little experience that this other person doesn't have, that there's no way, like, it's just, it happened by chance that this other person has that experience. It's very, very hard once you get down to the late levels of hiring somebody to kind of even tell people apart.
Yeah.
So it's complicated.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I just had something I wanted to say regarding Lambert, and I think I lost it. If it comes back up, though, we'll come back to it. But you posed a great question, right? Now Lambert's in. He's a new coach in the NHL. We're starting to see a few more new coaches too. Like I mentioned, St. Louis in, and Berube was new a couple of years ago. So now Lane Lambert is in, fresh new perspective with, a couple of the old school perspectives as well that can be entwined to make something new, right?
He's a new head coach. He finally has the reins.
Yeah.
That he didn't previously. So that's where there's probably parts of his vision for how a team should be run that he was previously just not able to do. It just wasn't his team.
Right.
So that's a new, you might just see changes based on, it's just simply a new person.
So, and like I said, the question that you posed was, did we potentially avoid a dangerous path of hiring recycled coaches? And in other words, Lambert's a new head coach in this league. The others potentially on the table have been through the ringer and shown in some cases to be terrible people, i.e. a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a couple of days ago even, Kevin Kurz once again wrote about, is Mike Babcock the favorite to become the New York Islanders coach? Of course, this is before we got today's news that it was going to be Lambert, but
the connection in Toronto was
right
there, and it was worth exploring that.
Right, exactly. And I said to you last week, the possibility of Joel Quenneville returning was something that people were talking about in the media. So did we potentially avoid or did we definitely avoid a potentially dangerous situation?
On two levels. You don't avoid the circus that comes with two levels, multiple levels. You avoid the circus that comes with Quenneville or Tortorella or any of these coaches that have been proven to be, like, problematic, to put it like super lightly, just to be around the team. You avoid some of these younger players having to deal with it, and it gets a new head coach back into the mix. It's different when it's a good coach. It's not like it's Gerard Gallant, who had no business being fired from two different teams.
Right. You could say the same about Trotz right now.
You could say the same. Like, there are some coaches that it feels less recycled and more, he's a good coach, and sometimes it runs its course.
Right.
There are plenty of them that are just like, why? You're simply like exist. It's like GM roles. Why? There's nobody better. There's no one with a different voice. There's nobody that I guess we're using that term a little a little too much in this episode, but it's just kind of the theme. There's no, it just gets tired. Like it doesn't, if like it doesn't work for so long, I'm like, just at no one, and I'm not just me, plenty of other people.
Right, and I do want to say you're not wrong in the there's nobody with a new voice, right? Because again, Claude Julien, Joel Quenneville, like all those guys have been around for when the game was different than it was before 2005, right? The 2005 2006 season was when things really started to change with the no more two line passes and stuff like that. So the way they adapted, sure, is great, but at the same time, they've been around so long that the NHL is not evolving because we don't have these new voices, these new faces. Lane Lambert becomes that new voice, that new face that helps evolve the game. And do the Islander fans listening to this right now want to sit here and say, well, I don't care about the game evolving, I care about lifting another Stanley Cup? Of course that's what they're going to say. At the same time, in order to lift that Stanley Cup, maybe that the Islanders need to evolve. And that's something that we've been talking about. It's not just, oh, if you go get Philip Forsberg, they'll win the cup. There's no guarantee of that. If they go get Philip Forsberg and they adapt a really good system with the defense that they've ingrained into their system via Barry Trotz and can continue with Lane Lambert and the new ideas he's bringing to this system that he can implement offensively as well, will ultimately and hopefully at some point lead the Islanders back to the promised land, to the Stanley Cup, and hopefully you'll see them lift it.
Yeah, I do want to just reiterate, I think we've said this at least twice now. We understand Lambert was with this team.
Yeah.
Right. It's I don't think anyone was I don't think Lamoriello was asking for a new system. He was asking for a new voice to implement that system and to make adjustments as necessary. You can hear the same thing from two people and react differently. How they say it, their delivery, the relationship with the players, the trust level, it's nuanced, it's layered. So I think there's a lot to it. Like, it's not just like, oh, it's not a new person, so it's not a new voice. It's, well, yeah, do you ever have somebody just, that in your company become your manager? It's a new voice for your department. It's not the same thing anymore. Even if they work there, if you got a promotion and now you're leading something, it's a new voice for that role. Right. So it is different, even if you have previous experience and knowledge of something specific. They are going to put their own spin on it, and the team needs to evolve. If they've shown anything, is that the league kind of figured them out a little bit. They can't just do what they've been doing. For 2 years, the Lightning figured them out. A little less so the second time around, but getting down, 1-0 game 7, blah blah blah. Everyone knows the story. So I think there's definitely adjustments, not just to the roster, but to how they're playing. I think that it does just take somebody's different perspective, getting elevated into a role, and not just it's simply being somebody from outside the organization.
And I do want to say too, if you're listening to this and you're still on the fence about like, well, they just all they did was hire their assistant coach. This is very different than from when Jack Capuano was let go and they hired Doug Weight, or Scott Gordon was let go and they hired Jack Capuano. These are very different situations. Lane Lambert was getting an NHL head coaching job somewhere else. If it wasn't with the Islanders, someone was going to offer him that job. Whatever it is that they see in Lambert, we'll soon find out. But Jack Capuano he got on the map because he was given a chance by Garth Snow. Doug Weight, same thing. He was behind the bench with Capuano. He thought there was, there should be a change. Gave him a shot. Like, nobody else was going to give those guys a shot. Lane Lambert was getting that shot if it was with the Islanders or if it was with somebody else.
Quick tangent. I am kind of surprised Doug Weight isn't involved in coaching in some capacity.
Yes. Somewhere. So he commented on that a couple days ago, because I don't know if you saw. He's on NHL Network now for
in a
part-time role.
I did see something about that.
Yeah, so what he's been saying, or what he was saying, was that he was enjoying his time at home with his kids, getting some things in order there, but he felt it was time to, after I think it was a couple of seasons, to get back into the game, and he feels that he has a future in the NHL at some point, and he thought that this was a good starting point. So, yeah, he is back.
That offensive mind, like, it really worked for the Islanders. He didn't really have a lot of star power, on the offensive side of the puck, even at that time. So it's interesting, like, if for Florida, or something, that they have a lot of skill, like he could really kind of lend himself to being like, I'm surprised like Carolina didn't scoop him up, like with Brind'Amour, being part of that. Like, he's kind of made his rounds. Like, a lot of guys go back to St. Louis.
I think
that have played in St. Louis. So, like, I'm surprised he didn't end up there. I can understand maybe not wanting to be in Edmonton. But yeah, those other two teams seems weird.
The way he made it sound, and it could just be, this could just be speculation on my part, but the way he made it sound was that it was more his choice to stay away from the game for a little longer and get some things in order in his personal life, and now he decided it was time for him to come back. So
that's great.
That's great. Did you want to comment? I haven't gotten to read it yet. Did you want to comment on Kurz's article today about why the Islanders named Lambert head coach?
Not necessarily. I think it kind of rounded up things very, very nicely for us. I don't think it was anything. It was a good kind of wrap up of what was going on, what to expect. How they're spending time, the Lambert and Lamoriello were spending time together and all that kind of stuff. But we don't need to kind of dive into.
Okay. So according to Andrew Gross last week, I think this was after we had recorded, he had said, director of goaltending, Mitch Korn, is unlikely to return, as it's believed he had already been informed, or that he had already informed the team prior to Trotz's firing that he was going to step away and most likely retire. So this has nothing to do with Trotz getting, let go of. It was a personal decision. It was time for him to retire, he felt. And one thing I did see was like a collective sigh, right? Because there was that obvious big sigh with Barry Trotz. Many believed, even though the words weren't said, that this was a result of Trotz going. But in fact, if you think about it, right, that everybody was worried because Mitch Korn, look at what he's done, right? Robin Lehner, Sorokin's doing really well. Semyon Varlamov had a fantastic season 2 seasons ago. But one thing I will say is, if you took the time to read through a number of Robin Lehner's rants, he really goes on to say Piero Greco is the guy on the ice doing the work, and making the goaltenders who they are. Mitch Korn is behind the scenes. He's the office guy and everything like that. And listen, Mitch Korn, that's a big
there's
loss.
Value. Yeah, there's value in that.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to be, that's not easy.
Not easy to fill. But the good news is that the on ice product should remain the same with Greco remaining with the Islanders, because he will be. So I do understand the worry, but again, the Islanders in their current state, even with now Lane Lambert as the head coach, are not Garth Snow's Islanders. That position that Mitch Korn is leaving will be filled by somebody who, even if you don't know who that person is, will be the right fit as the director of goaltending.
Yeah, I think that's good news. There's that consistency and continuity with Sorokin and Varlamov, with the goaltending team, and they can bring somebody else in or elevate Greco.
Yeah.
Although he's doing a good job on the on ice stuff, I don't know how some of those more specific roles within a team and the coaching staff can kind of move up around,
right?
Side to side. I don't know how any of that works. But yeah, I mean, if he's going to retire, I guess that's good that the league, it's a little sad that the league won't have somebody like that just around players to just make them the best that they can be.
Yeah.
selfishly, as an Islander fan, we don't have to deal with him going to like the Rangers and helping Shesterkin be the next Dominik Hasek.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's fine. It's sad we can't have him, but as long as other people can't have him either, in this particular case, I think that's fine.
I think that wraps it up for episode 108. I don't know exactly what's going to be on the dock for next week's episode, but maybe we'll get into potential, acquisitions, potential trades.
That means research. Are we going to do that?
I've already done my fair share. I think I'm well equipped for that conversation, John.
So you're telling me
do your homework.
Do your okay.
Or you're going to detention.
Going to detention. Well, I hate that.
Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. If you don't, you get detention as well. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at Nassman Hockey. You can find my work at the Fourth Period. You can find John's work at the Hockey Writers. And check out Isles Fix. Right now, it's the off season for them, but we want to say thank you to them for always supporting the show. But subscribe to their stuff, because whenever there's breaking news or something, they will, they'll do the occasional summer article for that, and you'll get it right to your mailbox. You don't have to go searching for it. It comes to you. So great stuff there with Isles Fix. And until next time, all, let's go Islanders.